So, if all the world's a stage, where the hell is the audience sitting? Didn't quite think that one through, did we? All right, so check this out. I do, live streams on this channel here, usually every Saturday afternoon around 1 o'clock Eastern Time. 1 o'clock-ish, heavy on the ish. We've been doing this for several months now. And I say we because we between meaning me and those who come to hang out. And that's basically what it is. We just kind of hang out and talk about gear. But one question that seems like I've been asked every single week for the last couple of months is any tips for how to set up a Floyd Rose tremolo. So I thought, why don't I just show you guys? So here's what we're gonna do. We're going to take this here guitar. This is a BC Rich Warlock, a Joey Jordison signature that I bought several years back. And I bought it because I'm a huge BC Rich fan. I thought this was a cool guitar. I thought it was a cool looking guitar. But more importantly, my wife really thought it was a cool looking guitar. And she actually gave me the go ahead to buy this one. So I guess this is really her guitar more than it is mine. She didn't even play guitar. At any rate, this one is definitely due for a new set of strings, and more importantly, a few other tweaks and adjustments here along the way. As far as setup stuff, I can see right now the bridge is already not sitting level, and that's usually the number one offender to Floyd Rose problems. One of them anyway. So I'm going to take it over to my workbench and sit down with it and stick a camera overhead. And just show you guys what I do, and and how I set these things up, and what has worked for me, and hopefully you guys can learn something from it. Okay, so I had to break out the old school lavalier microphone that I haven't used in forever. So here's what we got. Of course, here's basically the basics of what you're gonna need. You got the guitar, of course. You're going to need a set of strings. With this guitar I'm going to set up in a fairly low tuning. So these are Dunlop Heavy Core 11 to 50s. I normally don't use strings that heavy, but I'm going to give these a shot on this particular one. Basic toolkit, screwdrivers and Allen wrenches and stuff like that. This is the Ernie Ball guitar maintenance kit. This is a great investment for anybody. Of course, we got ourselves a string winder. This is a Diodario Planet Waves string winder that also happens to have a string cutter on the end of it, so save me having to get out a set of wire cutters. But in the instance I don't have wire cutters, there is a set here in the Ernie Ball maintenance kit. A few polish cloths. If you have a little rubber red eraser, you can get a pack of 3 of these at Walmart for like $1. You'll see what this is going to be used for. This guy right here, of course, is this is a polishing cleaning tool that I use. Mostly the brush end on it is real handy to brush out dust and stuff that gets caught underneath the strings, like between the pickups and up and around the headstock. It's real hard to get loose, and also good to get in there into some tight spaces like that. And of course, your assortment of cleaning compounds and chemicals, whatever you choose to use. This fretboard hasn't been conditioned in a while, so I am going to condition the fretboard while I'm at it. This one here, this is an Ernie Ball fretboard conditioner wipe. You can buy a box of like 6 of these for like $2. And one wipe will actually do a lot more than one guitar, in one sitting. You can't do one guitar with it and leave it sitting out for a week or so, then come back and do another one. It's going to dry out by then. But if you're doing multiple guitars at once, you can cover a lot of ground with one of these. The first thing that we need to do is prop up the bridge, and keep it somewhat elevated. It doesn't need to be perfectly level, but you need to have something in there to keep it from falling all the way down. So a lot of times, what I will do is just take a polished cloth and fold it up about like that, and you can stick it under there pretty easily. and that'll hold it up to about the right position. Or you can take this here little red pinky eraser, and that will actually fit under the bridge just about perfectly and keep it right at the height that you need it to be at. So with the bridge here in place, we're going to take our Allen wrench, and first things first, take the lock nuts off. And once you have them removed, you want to make sure to set them aside somewhere where you can get them and locate them easily. Get back to them again, because these there's a lot of small parts involved when it comes to restringing guitar. Okay, now this guitar has a reverse headstock, so just to make it easier on myself, I'm going to flip this thing around. That is usually a lot easier to do without the camera tripod right in front of me, but we got there. First thing we are going to do is, now we've got the bridge supported and lock bolts removed, we're going to loosen the strings a little bit. And then cut them off. Next, take our Allen wrench. We need to loosen these guys. And once I got my strings cut off, I always take them like that and then put all the ends together in a bunch, and then just wind them together. It makes it a lot easier to keep them all together and toss them in the trash when I'm done. Need to take off the truss rod cover because I'm changing gauges on this particular guitar, so it's going to need a truss rod adjustment. Alright, so now we're at this point, we're going to take our Ernie Ball fretball conditioner wipe. And this is an ebony fretboard, so it's not going to need too much, but we're going to put a little bit on it. Just enough. Make sure the surface of the fretboard is fully covered. I want to do it with that. Probably about all he needs. And you're going to want to take, I usually keep a separate cloth sitting around. Something that's pretty old, you know, kind of dirty. You know, this one's not too bad, but one day it will be. But I have a specific cloth set aside specifically for fretboard oils. You don't want to use these actually, you know, for any cleaning, polishing your guitar, because there's, you know, they're loaded with oil. Next, for the reason you guys all clicked on this video. Now on a guitar with a Floyd, I actually prefer to run the strings in from the headstock, from the tuning machines, and go down the other direction. And you see why. These ball ends are going to get cut off here in just a moment. But right now, what we want to do is just feed them down there to their slots on the bridge. And then one at a time, as we're going, we'll tighten them up in place. And these do not need to be in there that tight. Just snug them down. Okay, so now we got to that point. Fretboard has been conditioned, strings have been fed through the tuning machines, and with the ends locked down in the locking tremolo section, now it is time to start winding them onto the posts. But first, before we do that, I'm going to cut these ball ends off. Alrighty, so now I like to give them a wrap around the post like that, just enough to position it, and we start winding them on. by the way, if you're watching this and you're thinking to yourself, man, he's putting on a ton of windings. Yes, I do prefer a ton of windings on my guitars. And the reason why is, because I've always had a theory that, if you take a string and you wrap it around your finger, it feels like you got a string wrap around your finger once. If you keep wrapping it around your finger, but not adding any more pressure, you can feel it tighten up to an extent. And finger there is starting to turn red a little bit. So that's my theory behind it. I don't know if there's any truth to it or not, but I've never had, it's always worked for me. So that last one, I don't normally go for that many windings, but that's just kind of how that one worked out. All right, so new strings are on, but we are far from done. If you're watching this video, I'm willing to bet that this next part is probably where you're getting hung up and the reason why you're watching this video in the first place. So, one thing that I forgot to mention earlier that you're going to need is a good clip-on tuner. This is just a super snark, basically, that I've had for a long time. Works great. You don't need any crazy Peterson, $100, $200 strobo tuners or anything. This guitar is going to be set up for, actually setting it up in B standard where it's going. So now it is one string at a time, all tuned up to B standard. Now, you noticed that as I went through and tuned everything, one string at a time, all the strings were tuned up right to the pitch where I wanted them. That first string was a B, right? Now it's reading A sharp. With the spring balancing act system and everything that is going on in this guitar, we've got to go through and do that process a number of times. So, basically it's small increments, steady as she goes, if you will. So we're going to go through and tune this thing back up numerous times until, it starts settling in. And, when it starts settling in, that means that the tension is, and the overall balance is getting set right. So while we're doing so, though, the other thing that you need to do is keep an eye on the bridge, because what we don't want to happen is for the bridge to start going too high. And if that happens, then, we're going to have to make some other adjustments. Okay, so what I'm looking for here is to be able to, go through that process a number of times, however many times it takes, and then one last time go in and pluck every string and make sure that they are all the correct pitch without me having to touch the tuning keys. Okay, so for the rest of this, I am going to flip this bench back around. As for the most part, most of the heavy lifting with the tuning on this side is done. So, tension seems to be right thus far. I'm going to go ahead and pull this brace out from underneath the bridge and then see what she does. And see, starting to fall back a little bit. So that means it's time to pop the back off. The back is now off. This part of the Floyd Rose apparatus is called the claw. On the front, remember, the bridge was tilting back in towards the body, which means it had too much tension on it. So what we're going to do is go in here and we are going to loosen those screws, usually just a couple of little quarter turns at a time will do it. You want to make sure that that part of the claw stays parallel with that edge of the claw cavity. Nice small increments, steady as she goes. And then it's the same process. We're going to repeat that again a number of times until we get the tension to settle in. Okay, so now that we are that far along in the process, this time we're going to make a truss rod adjustment because the bridge is still sitting backward just a little bit. So we're going to this time make the adjustment on this end instead of the back. So I got a feeling we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of both, actually. I'm actually going to put that block back underneath it. That's still not sitting right where I want it. Alright, so this time I'm going to stuff the rag underneath it because it's, you know, there's kind of running out of room on the screws on the back side of it. So if I put the support back underneath the bridge, again, that'll get the bridge back level where I want it. Now I can tune it back up again and then see if we need to tighten or loosen anything again from there. You know, with setting up a Floyd Rose, it's all a great big balancing act in finding where the balance is among everything. So that's where we are thus far. I could feel as I was getting tuned back up that the action was starting to raise up a little bit. So that makes me think I might need to either adjust the neck or the springs in the back, one of the two. And we're going to tighten the springs in the back. That neck still looks okay. See what the bridge does when I take the brace out of it. Now we're sitting level. Now it's sitting flat, so see what happens when we go back the other way. Too much, so we're going to loosen it again. Okay, this guitar is a little more out of whack than I thought it did. I thought it was, so this took a little longer than expected, but we got it. So, finally in tune, bridge is level, springs are set on the back, truss rod is set, so now it's time to put everything back together. One thing I did forget to mention that you are going to want to do is make sure and level out your fine tuning screws down here on the bridge. I was getting ready to go lock the nut back down and realized I forgot to do that. So once I went back through and leveled that out, that threw everything off again. I had to go back and tune it back up, which took some time. So do that early. These, by the way, do not need to be on that tight. Hand tight plus a quarter turn is plenty. Just snug them down. They don't need to be cranked on there. Tune it up one more time from this end. And that's it, folks. She's ready to rock. So that's all there is to it. It's just like learning how to set these things up is just like playing it. You know, practice, practice, practice. And like I said, it took me a lot of practice to be able to finally be able to figure this out. But I finally figured it out. Best advice, the way that this thing works, the way that I was finally able to wrap my brain around it is great big balancing act between here, the truss rod here, and the springs on the back here. You know, once you can find that level ground and make it all in tune and stay in tune and the bridge level, that's what you're looking for. Sometimes it takes a little longer to get there than others. This is one of those instances because I went to a heavier gauge set of strings. You know, if you hang in there and you're patient and you keep working at it, eventually you'll figure it out and you will have a guitar that sets up and plays magnificently and stays in tune magnificently, which is the whole point of a Floyd Rose. So.
Okay, so I hope that those of you who have asked me about this, and maybe those of you who may not have asked me about this, I hope you guys find this helpful and informative, and are able to do this on your own a little bit more. It took me years to be able to wrap my brain around how this thing works and figure out exactly how to be able to restring one of these stupid things on my own. Because every time I sat down and tried to do it, I almost always screwed it up. And I just couldn't wrap my brain around how to do it. And finally, my good friend Tony Ramsey, who I talk about quite a bit, Tony is a brilliant guitar tech, and he can set up a guitar as well as anybody. And he gave me some pointers once upon a time, and I've implemented them into my own practices, and finally figured out how to do it and how this thing works. So You know, and the thing with guitars, you know, guitars are designed to be tweaked and adjusted by the user. So, you know, if you don't want to, you shouldn't have to pay somebody to make those adjustments for you. If you don't want to. I don't mind paying Tony to set up my guitars every now and again because, like I said, he's really, really good at it. Far better than I am. But there are times when I just don't feel like getting out my wallet. At any rate, hopefully somebody found this informative and helpful. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button to this channel if you haven't already, and leave a comment down below. Links will be down in the description for all the stuff mentioned and used in this video if you need them. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.